Jeff, why don't you come on the other side? Everybody good? All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. Before we get started, I just want to say a few words about retired Detective Luis Alvarez of the NYPD Bomb Squad, who, as you know, passed away following a truly remarkable, very public 3-year battle with 9/11-related cancer. His wake is tonight on Long Island, and his funeral is tomorrow morning in Astoria, Queens. I refer to Lou's battle as remarkable because it wasn't just his fight against a debilitating illness, which developed as a result of his unwavering dedication to service. It was also his enduring commitment to the people of New York City and our nation, including every single first responder and volunteer who saw their work on September 11th and in the weeks and months afterward as a duty, an obligation that they promised long ago to all the people we serve. And all Lou wanted in return was to have his government recognize their efforts by making sure they'd be taken care of medically when they fall ill. As Lou himself recently told Congress, he was lucky to be covered, but there are a great many others out there who aren't or won't be. They and their families will not only experience the stress of fighting these terrible illnesses, but their struggles will be compounded by the unconscionable financial stress of the health care. Soon in America, more will have died from 9/11-related illnesses than on 9/11 itself. The NYPD alone lost 23 brave souls on that horrific day, and more than 500 of our members have contracted various illnesses, including asthma, sinus conditions, pulmonary disease, and so many other life-threatening ailments. More than 220 have already died, now including Detective Lou Alvarez. Lou was a native of Cuba, raised in Queens, who served in the United States Marine Corps before joining the NYPD in 1990. He really was the American dream, a shining example of our great city's diversity and the call to service that so many courageous New Yorkers embrace. It is Detective Alvarez's memory that I strenuously urge our representatives in Congress to recognize that we cannot place a financial cap, a time limit on this slow-moving crisis. They absolutely must vote to extend and shore up adequate funding for the 9/11 Victims' Compensation Fund. The time for action is long overdue. Now on to the 4th of July. In a moment, you'll hear from Chief of Patrol Rodney Harrison, who will give you an idea how the NYPD is approaching the next few days. I want to let all New Yorkers know, and everyone who plans to visit New York City for the festivities, I want them to know what to expect in terms of extra security, street closures, and additional traffic, both on the roads and on public transportation. You'll also hear from our Chief of Counterterrorism, Jim Waters, who will discuss our efforts as they relate to the international threat picture. I can tell you there are currently no specific or credible threats to our 4th of July celebrations or to New York City in general. As always, we'll be working closely with all of our federal partners, our city partners, and state partners to ensure everyone's safety. I would just ask, as always, that everyone in New York and our nation always remain aware of your surroundings and always remain vigilant. If something doesn't look right, if it doesn't feel right, call 911 or tell a cop, give us the chance to investigate. Planning and securing these types of events is what the men and women of the New York City Police Department do on a daily basis. And everyone's going to have another safe and enjoyable Independence Day just like we do every year. Rodney?
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. So for the 43rd annual Macy's July 4th fireworks, if I could just talk about the traffic closures in the start. At 2 o'clock, we'll be shutting down traffic on the Brooklyn Bridge, as well as the FDR going both directions in between Battery Park and Houston Street. Then at 6 o'clock, we'll start allowing people to the viewing points. So there are 6 access points on the Manhattan side, as well as 6 access points on the Brooklyn side. The 6 access points on the Manhattan side, lower Manhattan side, are going to be on the FDR Drive in between Broad and Montgomery, and the 6 access points in Brooklyn will be in Brooklyn Bridge Park, as well as the Promenade. At each one of these access points, we'll have security checks as well as bag checks, and some of the prohibited items that we always could have at each one of the large events: no large coolers, no lawn chairs, no blankets, no umbrellas, please. For our deployment, we'll have thousands of cops working, as usual, for all of our large events. A lot of them will be in uniform, some of them you won't see. We'll have hundreds of blocker cards, sand trucks, cement barriers. Under Jimmy Waters and his counterterrorism team, they're going to have the critical response command's going to have heavy weapon teams, K9, bomb squad, and the drone interdiction teams. Under Harry Whedon's Special Operations Division, there's going to have rooftop coverage, aviation. Strategic response groups will be out there deployed with lone guns, as well as the harbor boats. As the Commissioner stated, at this time, there are no current threats, but it is very important, once again, that everybody stay vigilant. If you see something, please notify a cop, call 911, or use our hotline, which is 188-NYC-SAFE. The fireworks will begin at approximately 9:25 p.m. and will end a little bit before 10 o'clock. The fireworks will launch in the East River. There'll be 4 firework barges, and that will be in between Brooklyn Bridge and Whitehall Street. Just for some safety precautions, the weather is going to be about 87 degrees, but we will have portable water fountains as well as some cooling tents out there just in case if the weather gets a little bit too hot for the individuals that are viewing the event. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Fred. Chief Jim Waters from Counterterrorism.
Thanks, Commissioner. So we'll have our standard counterterrorism overlay for the 4th of July. It's important, just like we did with the Pride Parade, we'll have locked down the entire area. Obviously, there are no specific or credible threats, but we obviously follow the events with the Intelligence Bureau that go on around the world, vehicle rammings, active shooters, and such. Each entry point or access point you'll pass, go through I'll take you through a little walkthrough. You'll walk through an access point. There'll be a bag check. Officers will be checking people's bags. Prohibited items you'll be asked to leave them aside. Officers have personal radiation detection equipment on their gun belts. They also have explosive trace detection so they can swipe bags similar to the airport and test those bags before you enter. Followed by an explosive detection or vapor weight canine, and of course, all supported with a long gun team. A drone interdiction team will be deployed using the newest of technology that we've recently purchased. We'll have a deployment of block, the cement block that you'll see out there in the street. It's been deployed since last night. And the technology of, block our vehicles and sand trucks. You'll also have plainclothes officers mixed into the crowd and our camera technology both in Manhattan and in Brooklyn. Thank you.
Right. Yep. All right, thanks, Jim. Any questions about the 4th of July coverage? Tina? Jim, you want to talk about that?
So as I mentioned last week at the Pride, so we've purchased new technology from a company. It's the newest stuff on the market. I'm not going to go into, we put up sensors and are able to detect the frequencies and the existence of drones, and then we were able to pinpoint the operators and we go and speak to them.
Tony?
Waters, on the swiping, supposed swiping, is that going to be every bag?
No, we'll do similar to what we do in the subways. It'll be every 5th person, every 10th person, something like that. We'll swipe the zippers in the bags.
The biggest public safety challenge in past years with this event?
It's the geographic area. I mean, last year we went, if you looked at Queens, I think there was many people on the Queens side as there were on the Manhattan side. So it's, it's numerous boroughs. This year it's Manhattan South and Brooklyn North. I think a little bit of Brooklyn South. So I think it's, of course, the people, but it's over a huge area. But I don't know if you worked on Sunday. I don't think I've ever seen as many people in the borough of Manhattan in my whole life, but it was a great day for everyone. Yes, Aaron.
Have seen any specific credits or anything out there that worries you and was that it recently mentioned the terrorists putting that or any of that?
I mean, this is, we look at the threat stream each and every day. It's, the big events are, I've said it numerous times, I used to love 4th of July, New Year's, Thanksgiving, but it's what the NYPD does. We have so many large events during the year. We'll be ready. Everybody come on down. It's going to be a great show. Yes?
How many police officers exactly will be working?
I will not tell you exactly, but there will be many, 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 many.
More or less?
Many police officers. Do you ask that question every year? Somebody asks that every year. So one year we're going to slip up. Yes.
You mentioned
Yeah, Terry, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we're utilizing our drones with our technical assistance unit every major event now. It gives us an eye in the sky. We're going to place them in a couple of different locations, and it gives us an opportunity to monitor crowds from our cell phones based directly from the drones.
Any other questions about 4th of July? Okay, we're going to move on. Off topic. Right here.
Are there any updates on the safety practices yesterday in Bushwick? Was there anything yesterday?
Yeah, so Tom Chan will talk about the incident yesterday, and then Chief Monahan will talk about our enforcement efforts going forward.
Some questions about that.
Okay, all right, Tom?
Okay, in the confines of the 9-0 precinct, in the confines of the 9-0 precinct, vicinity of Borum and Bushwick Avenue, approximately 12:18 in the afternoon yesterday, we had a vehicle, a cement truck that was traveling eastbound on Borum Street, approaching Bushwick Avenue. The vehicle number one had a green light. The bicyclist apparently was traveling northbound on Bushwick Avenue on the west side of the street on the sidewalk. As the bicyclist approached Borum Street, they entered into the roadway. At that time, it had a pedestrian do not walk sign signal. This bicyclist went into the roadway and into the path of the vehicle, and as a result, she died of the injuries. What was the question?
Is there any, there's a surveillance video that shows that the driver looked like he was speeding. Was he issued any summonses to anything? The vehicle involved did stop on the scene. There were no summonses issued. It's currently being investigated. The CIS team has determined that the vehicle was traveling through a green light as it entered into the intersection. Okay, and I was also going to ask about the crackdown that was there announced yesterday. Exactly what the orders and how will everything be asked to crack down on reckless drivers?
All right, so what we're doing is asking the traffic safety team of every one of our commands to focus in on hazardous type violations, being speeding, red lights, failure to yield to pedestrians and or bicycles, cell phone, texting, any sort of distracted driving. We're also going to be giving summonses. All our traffic enforcement agents throughout the city have been told to focus summonses on the bike lanes for anyone that stops in a bike lane to give them a summons. And that's all the precincts also, the patrol sectors that are out on patrol have been told to focus on it. And we'll be getting the numbers on what we do each and every day.
So in May, there were multiple going back tickets written to drivers, including all 77 precincts for parking in a bike lane. Do you expect what do you expect that numbers look like next month?
I'm not sure if that's a May number, but I can tell you next month it'll be a lot higher.
I'm going to venture to say if in the month of May, that's not accurate. What happened is that for bike lanes, vehicles that are parking in the bike lane, in 2019, right now, we have 33,030 summons that were issued year to date. So when you say only 45 in the month of May,
That's what's starting to moving violations. Yeah.
these are the numbers, and we.
That's not a moving violation, that's a parking.
summons.
Different summons. A B summons is a moving, an A is a parking. So if you park the car, you get an A summons, and that's a 33,000. That may have been someone driving in a bike lane that those 45 are.
Yep, I know.
There have been folks have been posting pictures on Twitter of NYPD patrol cars parked in bike lanes frequently, raising concerns about that. I wonder what you say, what might you say to officers who do park in the bike lane, what consequences, if any,
Hey, it's, we're talking on duty or off duty?
I'm not sure, just curious.
What's that? The radio cars? The only time, if it's an emergency call, that's where they should be. Otherwise, they should find some other place to park. Tony?
There's been an increase in shooting so far this year. The numbers are up by about 7% per year. And particular areas of Brooklyn North, Queens North have seen significant increases. What are you doing? I know you had the summer all out, but what are you doing to try to combat that? We've had a lot of innocent bystanders hit shooting as well. So
Terry will go into it a little bit more, but we're up in Brooklyn North. I think as of this morning, we're up 18, and for the city, we're up 24. So that's a significant part of the increase. I don't know if you saw the video of the young man walking down the street firing his gun at when the 11-year-old was hit a couple of weeks ago. So that's, you look at that and you think, why in God's name would that young man do that? And that's to the root of the problem we're trying to get to. Whether it's a gang investigation, crew investigation, if it's other method of intervention, that's what we're looking at. The problem continues to be driven by gangs and crews. We have a class of 425 that were graduated today. They'll be they'll be hitting the streets 4th of July. They'll be working, and then they'll be going to their respective boroughs and precincts. So that's part of the plan too. Terry, I don't know if you got anything else you want to add.
Again, when we look at Brooklyn, it's 4 commands, 7375, 7779. They account for approximately 23% of all our shootings citywide year to date. A lot of our focus, our all-out commands went in there. There's additional 100 police officers between those 4 commands and PSAs that went into that. Some gang takedowns, some of you'll be hearing about very shortly, that has been involved in some of that violence. And we talk about the individuals hit by stray bullets. A lot of those cases have been closed by tremendous work by Dermot Shea's detectives. It's an all-out effort against them, and it's against guns. In Brooklyn, we need the prosecution of guns to be taken seriously. So we need, a lot of arrests have been made for guns. We need that end game of the prosecution where someone actually goes to jail when they're running around the streets of Brooklyn holding a gun in their hand.
Grace?
Maybe they're responding to a call, or they're even sort of providing safety or monitoring of visuals for cyclists who've been killed and they're parking their vehicles and bike lanes.
Right.
In a situation that doesn't seem like an active emergency.
So that's exactly what we're looking at. We're looking at to make sure that their behavior when they're driving these marked RMPs is to definitely not to drive in a bike lane unless, of course, it is an emergency call where somebody's life is being threatened or there's property being threatened. Also, it's a matter. This is a message that we send out constantly. It's in New York City. It is a congested city. There's no doubt about it. But we have to be. We're the ones responding to calls. We're the ones that have to be responsible also. I think 15 bicyclists have been killed year to date. That's, as the mayor said last night, that's unacceptable, and we have to make sure that we do our part too.
What is the punishment or the consequence for an officer who does park their car?
No, I think it could range from a reprimand, it could be a supervisor's complaint report, any number of things could happen. Tina.
Thoughts on Bobby's op-ed in the mayor today? And secondly, what do you think about the mayor taking this idea to talk to his son about the actions?
So, what a father says to his son, that's in their family. What Dante wrote, that's his experience. I will tell you what we've been doing in New York City, the NYPD, since 2015. Actually, since right after Rafael Ramos and Joe Liu were brutally murdered. We knew that we had to pivot and we had to increase trust in all 77 precincts with all 8.6 million New Yorkers. And I think as you look at the results and the feedback that we're getting from the communities and from the police officers, it's all been positive. And we just contracted the Rand Corporation to come in and take a look and make sure that neighborhood policing is doing what we think it is doing, not anecdotally, just by research. I've been in this profession a long time. Sometimes we're not people's favorite people, but we're here to do a job, and I think we do it very well. We are, as I say all the time, we're the best police department in the nation, and look where we are. If you do the math, in 1990, there were 2,200 homicides. Multiply that crime rate by 30, and that's about 60,000 more people would have been murdered in this city if we didn't get that murder rate down. So, there's always going to be issues, always going to be challenges. I never stand up here and say we're perfect, but from what I'm seeing at my level, and I talk to cops all the time. I talk to hundreds of them at the Pride Parade who worked on average about 20 hours each. They love what they do, and they know that their job is to fight crime and keep people safe. So that's what I would say. Yes.
Like this district data show where these kind of violations are happening most. So what differences are you
I don't know, Tom, do you have any more data on that?
The fatals that we had, we've seen an increase certainly in the borough of, in Brooklyn itself. So we've had additional officers and officers in terms of doing overtime, and also to take a look at the hazards, targeting the violations that are affecting our bicyclists out there, and also enhancing our traffic safety program. And again, also, as we mentioned before, having our traffic agents out there. If there are bike lanes dedicated there, we're going to issue summonses to people who are parking in those locations, and also towing those vehicles to make sure that they have access, the bicyclists have access to these roadways.
Mark?
What are the other officers that you last week? Is there anything the department is doing differently now in this program?
Yep, thanks for bringing that up. So at the press conference, we had a press conference the other day, I spoke, Terry had a conversation with Chicago PD, Chief Eddie Johnson. We're looking at, number one, our firearms removal policy to make sure that it's best practices. We're also looking at peer-to-peer counseling in every unit in the police department to make sure that the police officers who have very difficult jobs have someone they can turn to, someone they can trust as they go through their days facing stresses on the job and personal stresses too. And we're also making sure we take a look at what the services are that are available. So those are the three main points that we're looking at. And we're not done looking at it. First step, Ben Tucker is running with the ball here. We owe it to our police officers to make sure that when they go have issues, have challenges, have stresses, that they have somewhere they can turn to and not be afraid it's going to have a long-term effect on their careers.
Is there any push to sort of go to the precinct level? Put resources dedicated there?
Yeah, that's what the peer-to-peer will be, peer-to-peer counselors. We're looking to put them in every precinct, every district, every PSA, every unit on the job, where someone in that unit that's having an issue, they have someone that they can trust and they can turn to and get them the help that they need and that they deserve. Yep.
Going back to guns, just more information on firearms, what else is on your right now? The 476, legal, streets around West traffic.
As far as what happened to the arrest, I have to get back to you on that. To see what the Bronx DA's office, we'll have to get back to you on that. Tony?
You mentioned the Brand report. Is it done? We'll see it.
It's a 2-year process. I'm supposed to be getting some preliminary results shortly. Not sure if they're going to be made available to the public. It's a long-term study, and we just want to make sure that what we're doing and how we're doing it is servicing the people in New York the way we need to service them. Yep. Right there. Yep. Yeah, Chief Shea will give you that.
So yesterday evening on Prospect Avenue in the Bronx, in the confines of 48th Precinct, a little after 10 p.m., we had a 13-year-old that was shot in the chest, removed to the hospital. It's expected at this time that the child is going to survive his injuries. What we have at this point in time, and it's very active still, all indications indicate that this was not an unintended target. We believe there was an earlier disturbance that the child was involved with in the same neighborhood. The role that disturbance played in this shots fired is what's now under investigation. But we do not believe he was an unintended target.
John? Yeah, Tom will give you the number of bicycle summonses that we've issued this year, but when a bicycle is killed, we really have to make sure we show some sensitivity here. You know, there's a huge difference between a 3,000-pound vehicle and a 20-pound bicycle. So, Tom, do you have those numbers? Bicycle summonses versus vehicle summonses.
Sure. When we take a look at, I'll use an example, even in 2018, we've issued a total of 34,096 summonses for the year in 2018. In terms of moving violations of vehicles and total, we issued over 1 million summonses. And we take a look at that, it's about 3% of our summonses are issued to bicyclists itself, all right? And so again, they're a part of the population in the roadways and things of that nature, but those are the moving summonses that we've issued. And in a post collision analysis that we do by the local precincts, and then it's followed up by 48 hours where they submit plans, they describe the vehicle collision and the details of the actions that we're going to take. Within a week of a collision, the actual precinct itself will do a 3-year breakdown of what we've done in that area in terms of enforcement, collision, percentage of collisions involving injuries, pedestrians, and bicyclists. And then also we will do a enforcement breakdown, follow up with a engineering recommendation to DOT and traffic intelligence reports. Also, community outreach at those locations, and subsequently we'll take a look at the education and the enforcement in the zone itself. So we do have a comprehensive program by our patrol officers and precincts to follow up with enforcement, education, and engineering at those locations.
Yep.
Terry said what he said last week, and we're holding to it. You know, we're not, if a bicyclist is seriously injured or killed, we're not looking to go back there and ticket bicyclists. We will go back there, and there's some education that we might talk about also. Bicyclists have to be responsible, but as I said, you know, there's a huge difference between a 2 or 3 ton vehicle and a 20 or 30 pound bicycle. Yep.
Can you expand on that? Obviously, there's a debate that always goes on after these kinds of fatalities, whether the driver is most responsible for cyclists' safety or the cyclist him or herself. Who do you think primarily is responsible for cyclist safety?
I think everybody, whatever vehicle you're operating, you have to operate it safely, so everybody's got their own responsibility.
Two more, guys?
Yep.
I know you were just asked about this last week, but I'm wondering if anything has changed with regard to the Daniel Pintaleo case. If you've received any recommendations?
No. Deputy Commissioner Trials Rosemary Maldonado still has the case. Thank you, everybody. See you out there on 4th of July. Happy 4th.
Yeah. So I will be very careful because of it.
Unless you recognize me, I'm next on Santerre. We have been shooting.
Oh, hi.
I can recognize you, but
How funny.
Did you see the science minister, Tara? No, so did she. Like, tall, handsome, giving out eclipse classes to the kids, to the students that are here. Speaking about all of the different things that happen in LSE is perfect science comp.
Sans la main, sans qu'on voit mon bras. Oui, pardon, je suis désolé.
Go in here.
Right, let's go around the back of the car and she's still do time lapse.
Ok, c'est bon, je peux dans le cours.
bravo, Manuel. That's great. Yes. Con papel blanco. Vamos aquí. Ahí en la piedra está perfecto. Va a bajar el sol. Everybody's quiet, huh? Dario. Everybody's quiet. Everybody's quiet. Been there talking, but up there, you're not.
Check.
Occasionally I'm checking still guiding. It is. Yeah, more canal. Yeah, hi. I'm going to contact this guy, Javier, to ask him if he can consider integrating with Indy. Because Mac is available, Indy is available for Mac, and then we can use any camera you want. You're not bound to Canon or SD. So that's good.
Our totality. What are the shadow bands? Oh yeah? I don't know. I'll be this. Yeah. You get interference. Bending, yeah, reflection. Yeah. I didn't know. Here. Yeah, I think so. Next to the antenna. Manuel, have a bird on your antenna. ¿Qué? Tienes un pájaro en la antena. Justo al lado, en la rosita a la derecha. Una de estas se te sube ahí, ¿eh? ¿Cacho? Hay un pájaro justo en la antena, en la roca esa.
A la derecha.
¿Ves?
Está durmiendo.
Okay, I see what you mean. zgłosił, już są wykluczone.